Starmer just dropped a political bombshell that has every mayor in Britain shaking. In a move no one saw coming, the Prime Minister has threatened to demote Sadiq Khan over his controversial £5,000 pay raise, and Westminster has exploded into chaos. This isn't just a slap on the wrist. This is a warning shot that could change the balance of power between Downing Street and City Hall forever. If you thought the pay scandal was bad, wait until you hear what Starmer is planning next, because this fight is about a lot more than money. It's about control, power, and who really runs Britain. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The man running the entire country just publicly signalled that he's had enough of Sadiq Khan's antics. According to insiders, Starmer is furious that Khan accepted a pay bump that pushed his salary above the PM's own pay. That's right. The Mayor of London, whose job is supposed to be managing buses, bike lanes, and local services, now takes home more money than the person responsible for Britain's nuclear codes and national defence. And Starmer isn't laughing about it. He's reportedly telling colleagues that if Khan can't get his priorities straight, he may face what's being called an effective demotion. Now let's pause for a second, because this is historic. Prime Ministers do not threaten to strip power from mayors. It almost never happens. But Starmer is under pressure, huge pressure from his own MPs and from the public, who are furious that Khan's salary has jumped at the exact moment London is facing its worst cost of living crisis in decades. Ordinary Londoners are watching their rents skyrocket, their grocery bills go through the roof, and their energy costs eat up half their paycheck. Meanwhile, City Hall is celebrating a 3.2% raise for the mayor and a hiring spree that added nearly 550 new staff since the pandemic. The optics are terrible, and Starmer knows it. His allies are whispering that the PM sees this as a credibility test. If Labour is serious about proving it can run the country fairly, it cannot have its most high-profile mayor cashing in while telling citizens to tighten their belts. In other words, Khan's pay scandal is now a political liability for Starmer, and he's moving fast to contain the damage. Reports suggest that Starmer's team is considering several options, from pressuring Khan to voluntarily roll back his pay raise, to changing the rules that govern mayoral salaries altogether. The nuclear option. Stripping some of Khan's powers and transferring them back to Whitehall, effectively cutting him down to size. That would be the biggest confrontation between a Prime Minister and a London mayor since the office was created. But here's where it gets really interesting. People inside City Hall are apparently furious. Sources say Khan feels singled out and betrayed by his own party leader. Remember, Khan and Starmer are supposed to be on the same team. They're both Labour. For the PM to publicly threaten his own mayor shows just how bad this scandal has gotten. This is no longer a quiet internal disagreement. This is a public showdown. And if you think this is just about money, think again. Behind the scenes, there's talk that Starmer's move is also about reminding other Labour mayors across the country who's boss. If Starmer is willing to go after Khan, the most powerful and high-profile mayor in Britain, then no one is safe. The message is clear. Step out of line, embarrass the government, and you will pay the price. What happens next could shake British politics. If Khan backs down, Starmer comes out looking like a strong leader who can enforce discipline. But if Khan refuses, we could see a full-on civil war inside the Labour Party, right when they need unity the most. Imagine the headlines if Labour's biggest city mayor starts openly defying the Prime Minister just months before key elections. The Tories would have a field day. And let's not forget the public. Londoners have been simmering with anger for months over rising crime, failing transport, and unaffordable housing. They are looking for someone to blame, and right now, Sadiq Khan is an easy target. If Starmer forces Khan to backtrack, voters may cheer. But if this turns into a bitter power struggle, Londoners could lose faith in both men. This is not just about a £5,000 raise anymore. This is about who runs London and whether the man in Downing Street or the man in City Hall gets the final say. And trust me, neither side wants to lose this fight. The pressure cooker inside Westminster is now reaching boiling point. What started as a simple story about a £5,000 pay raise has turned into the biggest political showdown of the year. Labour MPs are whispering in the corridors, journalists are circling like sharks, and even members of Starmer's own cabinet are reportedly divided over how far to go in reining Khan in. Some of them are warning that this could backfire spectacularly if the Prime Minister is seen as bullying one of Labour's most popular mayors. But others are saying Starmer has no choice if he lets this slide. He looks weak, and weakness is something he cannot afford right now. His opponents in Parliament have already started calling him soft on London and accusing him of protecting Khan because he's a Labour ally. The Conservatives are loving every second of this drama. Tory MPs are lining up to hammer Labour over the hypocrisy of telling everyone else to cut back while City Hall fattens its payroll and gives its boss a pay bump that puts him ahead of the Prime Minister himself. But the real danger isn't coming from the Tories, it's coming from inside Labour. Khan has his own loyal faction within the party, especially in London, and they are furious at what they see as a power grab by Starmer. These people are already briefing the press that the mayor won't be pushed around, and that any attempt to clip his wings will be met with fierce resistance. Imagine the optics if Labour's biggest mayor and the leader of the party go to war with each other in full public view. It would be the kind of split that hands ammunition straight to the opposition. Some Labour strategists are warning that this entire debacle risks overshadowing the party's message on the cost of living crisis, healthcare, and economic growth, the very issues they want to dominate the next election campaign. Instead of talking about how Labour will make life better for ordinary people, every front page is now screaming about Sadiq Khan's salary and whether Starmer is strong enough to bring him to heel. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. Londoners are growing angrier by the day. Crime rates are still climbing, with knife attacks happening so often they barely make the evening news anymore. Transport services are becoming more unreliable, with constant tube delays and bus route cuts. Housing prices are so out of control that entire families are being forced out of the city, pushed into far-off suburbs, or completely out of London altogether. Homelessness is visible on almost every street corner. People are asking themselves, if London now has nearly 1,800 staff working at City Hall, almost 550 more than before COVID, why are things getting worse instead of better? What exactly are all these people doing all day? Why is the city falling apart if we are paying record amounts to keep it running? These questions are not just rhetorical anymore, they are political dynamite. And they are exploding right under Khan's feet. Insiders say Starmer is already gaming out possible scenarios. One option reportedly being discussed is to set up an independent review of mayoral salaries nationwide, effectively freezing pay for all city leaders until a new, fairer formula is introduced. Another option would be to tie mayoral pay directly to national performance metrics, so that if London's crime rate, housing crisis, or transport failures get worse, the mayor's salary would be capped or even cut. This would be a radical move. No British mayor has ever had their pay linked to performance in this way, but it would send a message that Labour is serious about accountability. And then there's the most dramatic option of all, using Parliament to pass legislation that strips away some of the mayor's powers and gives them back to central government. That would be a nuclear option, a direct confrontation with Khan, and one that would spark a constitutional fight over who really runs London. What's fascinating here is how quickly this story has gone from a local pay dispute to a national question of leadership. Starmer's critics say he should have seen this coming months ago. They argue that the Labour leadership has been too hands-off with Khan, letting him run City Hall like his own personal fiefdom without proper oversight. Now the scandal is front-page news, and Starmer has been forced into a corner. If he doesn't act, he looks like he's tolerating waste and rewarding failure. But if he comes down too hard, he risks splitting the party and alienating voters in London, a city Labour absolutely needs to hold if it wants to win the next general election. This is what makes the situation so volatile. There are no easy moves left on the chessboard. Every decision carries massive political risk. Meanwhile, Khan has been remarkably defiant. Sources close to him are saying he will not roll back his pay raise and sees this as a matter of principle. He argues that his salary is set by an independent body, not by him, and that he cannot be blamed for accepting what he is legally entitled to. But this legalistic argument is unlikely to win hearts and minds when ordinary Londoners are struggling to pay rent and heat their homes. Public anger is rising, and politicians who ignore public anger tend to regret it later. The mayor may be calculating that Starmer will eventually back off to avoid a civil war inside Labour. But that is a very dangerous gamble, because if Starmer does not back off, if he decides to make an example of Khan, the fallout could be career-ending for one of them. This is why political insiders are saying this showdown is about much more than just a pay raise. It is about who holds the power in Britain's most important city. It is about whether the Prime Minister can impose discipline on one of his most visible allies. And it is about whether Labour can present a united front to voters, or whether it will collapse into public infighting at the worst possible moment. The stakes could not be higher. And from what we are hearing, the fight is only just beginning. What we are witnessing now is a slow-motion explosion that could rip through the very foundations of the Labour Party. The political earthquake has already begun. You can feel the tremors in every interview, every leaked memo, every off-the-record briefing to the press. The cracks are starting to show. Senior Labour figures are reportedly split into two camps. On one side, you have the Starmer loyalists, the hardliners, who say this is the perfect opportunity to send a message to the entire party. No one, not even Sadiq Khan, is bigger than the movement. They believe that by threatening Khan with demotion or stripping some of his powers, Starmer can prove he is a strong leader who puts the public interest first. On the other side, you have the pragmatists who warn that turning this into a public power struggle is political suicide. They fear that a direct confrontation with Khan will alienate London voters, demoralise Labour activists, and give the Tories a golden opportunity to paint Labour as a party at war with itself. This isn't just a debate about strategy, it's a battle for the soul of the party. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party is having the time of its life. Tory MPs are gleefully fanning the flames, calling for Khan to resign, mocking Labour for its civil war, and demanding that Starmer prove he is serious about cleaning up waste. Right-wing newspapers are running front-page spreads with headlines like "Pay Scandal Mayor Faces Axe" and "Starmer v Kisan, Labour, meltdown." Every day this story stays in the news is a day Labour can't talk about its plans for the economy, the NHS, or anything else voters care about. Instead, they are stuck answering questions about why the Mayor of London is making more money than the Prime Minister and why Labour hasn't done anything about it yet. This is a political gift for the opposition and they know it. But here's the twist that makes this situation even more dangerous. Public anger isn't just directed at Khan anymore. It's starting to spread to Starmer himself. People are asking why it took this long for the Prime Minister to act. Why didn't he step in earlier, before this blew up into a national scandal? Was he protecting Khan because they're both Labour? Was he hoping no one would notice the raise? The longer this drags on, the more it looks like Starmer is reacting to public outrage rather than leading from the front. That perception could be deadly in politics, where voters punish leaders who seem indecisive or weak. And then there's the media frenzy. Every talk show, every panel discussion, every newspaper column is dissecting the pay scandal and speculating about what Starmer will do next. Political commentators are calling this the biggest test of Starmer's leadership since he became Prime Minister. Some are even comparing it to the moments that defined previous leaders, like when Tony Blair faced down his rebels over Iraq or when Margaret Thatcher crushed dissent within her own cabinet. The message is clear. How Starmer handles Khan will define his legacy. If he is seen as decisive, firm and willing to put the public first, he could come out of this stronger than ever. But if he is seen as dithering, weak or afraid of confrontation, it could permanently damage his authority. Khan, for his part, is doubling down. Instead of backing off, he has reportedly told allies that he will not be intimidated, and that he has a democratic mandate from Londoners that no Prime Minister can override. This is bold, but also risky. By framing this as a fight between London and Westminster, Khan is essentially daring Starmer to escalate the conflict. If Starmer takes the bait and moves to strip powers from City Hall, it could trigger mass protests in London. Imagine thousands of Khan supporters flooding Trafalgar Square, accusing the Prime Minister of a power grab. The images would be splashed across every front page and every news channel, painting Starmer as an authoritarian figure crushing local democracy. That is the nightmare scenario Labour strategists fear the most. But here's the thing some insiders believe: Starmer is willing to take that risk. They argue that allowing Khan to walk away unscathed would set a terrible precedent, not just for London, but for every mayor in the country. If Khan can take a pay raise during a cost of living crisis and face no consequences, what's stopping the mayors of Manchester, Birmingham or Liverpool from demanding the same treatment? This could trigger a salary arms race among local politicians at the very moment when public finances are stretched to the limit. Starmer knows that if he doesn't draw a line in the sand now, he may lose control of the entire system. This is why the stakes are so high. We are not just talking about one man's salary. We are talking about the future of how Britain is governed. We are talking about whether London remains semi-autonomous or whether the Prime Minister reasserts control from the centre. We are talking about whether the Labour Party can stay united or whether it will tear itself apart in full public view. And we are talking about whether Starmer can convince the country that he is a strong, decisive leader or whether he will be remembered as the man who let Sadiq Khan run rings around him. At this point, every move matters, every word matters, every headline matters. One wrong step from either man could trigger a chain reaction that neither can control. And from the looks of it, neither side is ready to blink. This isn't just a pay dispute anymore, it's a political standoff, and it's about to get ugly. This is the point where everything could blow wide open. The tension between Starmer and Khan is no longer just a private disagreement. It has become the headline story dominating British politics, and it is teetering on the edge of a full-scale political eruption. We are now hearing rumours that senior Labour officials are preparing for the worst-case scenario, a public rebellion by Khan that could split the party down the middle. Imagine the chaos if the Mayor of London openly defies the Prime Minister, refuses to reverse his pay raise, and dares Starmer to strip his powers. It would be the biggest political confrontation between City Hall and Downing Street in modern history. The cameras would be rolling, the media would be salivating, and the opposition would be celebrating. And in the middle of this firestorm would be the people of London, the very citizens who have been enduring higher rents, rising crime, unreliable transport, and crumbling public services. Their anger is already at boiling point, and this scandal is throwing petrol on the fire. Because here's the brutal truth. This is no longer just about whether Khan deserves a £5,000 raise. This is about trust. This is about whether Londoners believe their leaders are living in the same reality as they are. Every time a family skips a meal because groceries cost too much, every time a commuter is stuck on a delayed train, every time a small business shuts its doors because energy bills are too high, this pay scandal becomes more toxic. It has become a symbol of everything people hate about politics. Leaders enriching themselves while ordinary people struggle to get by. Starmer knows this, which is why he cannot simply let Khan off the hook. If he does, he risks looking like yet another politician who protects his own while ignoring the suffering of the public. And yet, the risks of acting are enormous. If Starmer formally moves to claw back Khan's pay or uses parliamentary power to curb City Hall's authority, we could see an explosion of political activism in London not seen since the anti-poll tax protests. The narrative could flip overnight, painting Starmer as a bully attacking London's first Muslim mayor, turning Khan into a martyr figure for progressives. The global media would pick up the story, and suddenly what started as a domestic salary dispute could become an international conversation about race, representation, and power. Starmer would then be fighting on two fronts, trying to justify his actions to the nation, while also defending himself against accusations of targeting one of Britain's most high-profile ethnic minority politicians. For a Prime Minister who promised to bring integrity and unity back to politics, that would be a nightmare. This is why every political observer is calling this a make-or-break moment. If Starmer navigates this correctly, he could emerge as a leader who stands up for taxpayers, restores trust in government spending, and reasserts control over an unruly political landscape. But if he miscalculates, if he pushes too hard or hesitates too long, this could spiral into the kind of crisis that topples governments. Labour's rivals are already sharpening their knives. The Conservatives are waiting to turn this into a campaign ad, accusing Labour of hypocrisy, division, and failure to deliver. Reform UK is preparing to use this scandal to win over angry voters who feel abandoned by both major parties. And even within Labour, whispers are starting about what this means for Starmer's future. Some MPs are quietly asking, if he can't control his own mayor, how can he control the country? The coming weeks will be decisive. There are rumours of an emergency meeting between Starmer's team and City Hall aides, where Khan may be given an ultimatum: roll back the raise voluntarily or face legislation that could cut your powers. If Khan caves, Starmer will declare victory and move on. But if Khan refuses, if he chooses to fight, then Britain could be about to witness a political showdown unlike anything we've seen in years. Protests, parliamentary debates, midnight press conferences, the kind of high-stakes political drama that grips the entire nation. UK politics will not just be heated, it will be in full-scale eruption. And this is where you come in. Because this is no longer just a story to watch passively from the sidelines. This is about your money, your services, your city, and your country. The question is simple. Do you think Sadiq Khan should give back the raise and cut City Hall's bloated payroll? Or do you think Starmer is overreaching and trying to centralise too much power? Should mayors be held financially accountable when their cities are falling apart? Or should their pay be completely separate from performance? Tell me in the comments right now what you think, because your voice matters in this debate. And don't just stop there, share this video with everyone you know so that more people